Hello, and welcome to my discussion on launching a comparative study of World War II propaganda strategies. In this discussion, I will be speaking about the historiography of my topic, historical context and significance, research focus and professional discourse, and a conclusion. The historiography of women's roles and propaganda strategies during World War II is a rich and varied field, reflecting the complexity of gender dynamics and the multifaceted nature of wartime societies. When examining the historiographical evolution and key themes in the scholarship of this topic, there will be a total of 8 different historiographical periods that will be discussed. The first period is traditional military history. In this period, early historiographical works on World War II tended to focus primarily on military strategies, battles, and male soldiers, with little attention to women's contributions. When women were mentioned, it was often in auxiliary or supportive roles. The major historians of this period were Maurice Hatloff and Edwin Snell. They focused mainly on military strategies with limited discussion of the home front and women's roles. Our next period is social and labor history. In social history, starting in the 1970s, social historians began to explore the broader societal impacts of World War II, including the transformation of gender roles. This approach emphasized the experiences of ordinary people, including women. Some of the major historians during this period were Susan M. Hartman and Ruth Milkman. Some of the things that they examined is how women altered roles and opportunities in American society, and how investigations during wartime labor were needed to change temporary jobs due to segregation. Our next period area of focus is gender history. Gender historians delve deeper into how World War II reshaped gender norms and identities. They analyzed the way propaganda was used to both challenge and reinforce traditional gender roles. 2 major historians that are pioneers in this field are Maureen Honey, who explored the intersection of class and gender in American wartime propaganda with her work Creating Rosie the Riveter, Class, Gender, and Propaganda During World War II in 1984, and Mona Siegel, Gender, War, and International State, a history of wartime women's activism in 2020, is discussing the global dimensions of women's wartime activism and the role of gender during the war. Our next major area is cultural history. Cultural historians focus on the symbols, media, and narratives that shaped and reflected women's experiences during World War II. This includes analysis of propaganda posters, films, and other media. Donna Knaff and Melissa A. McEwen are 2 major people who are cultural historians. They are looking how cultural representation of women and how they had impact on society and cultural roles, and how women are depicted during wartime roles. Our next, which is our 5th, is feminist historiography. Feminist historians have critiqued patriarchal structures and highlighted the agency of women during World War II. They focus on how propaganda both reinforced and challenged gender inequalities. The famous historian Lillian Rupp, with her famous work that is going to be a basis of a lot of the research, is Mobilizing Women for War, German and American Propaganda 1939 to 1945. It compares propaganda efforts in Germany and the United States and their feminist implications. Adding on to this work that was done in 1978 by historian Rupp, Gail Brybon and Penny Summerfield, with their work Out of the Cage, Women's Experiences in 2 World Wars in 1987, is going to provide feminist analysis of women's roles and experiences. We then have the intersectional analysis, where recent scholarship is emphasizing the importance of considering race, class, and other intersecting identities in understanding women's experiences during World War II. This approach is highlighting the diversity of women's experiences and the variety of impact of propaganda. This is going to be people like Karen Tucker Anderson, that historian, and historian Wynne Fred Bruins and Linda Gordon. They're going to look how economic conditions and gender intersected during the war are going to impact labor markets. The seventh area is going to be comparative histories. This comparative histories are going to examine differences and similarities in how various countries mobilized and represented women during the war, providing broader contextual insights. This is going to be people like Nicole Dombrowski. They're going to list With or Without Consent is their book, Women in War in the 20th Century. That's going to offer a comparative perspective on women's roles in different national contexts during World War II. Margaret Hignott is going to do comparative essays on gender and war across different countries and contexts, which is going to be a foundational work. And then finally, our last movement is transnational histories. These transnational histories are going to explore how wartime experiences and propaganda are going to intersect across borders, considering the global impact of World War II on women's roles. This is going to be like people Franziska Saltman, Sharon Farmer, and Margaret Hignott. Gender, War in 20th Century Eastern Europe. This is going to examine how gender and war intersected in Eastern Europe with implications in understanding global patterns. You may be asking how historical context and significance is going to play within this. World War II is a transformative era where women assumed roles traditionally held by men, leading to significant shifts in gender dynamics. The urgent demand for female labor arose as men were conscripted into military service. Propaganda is going to emerge as a vital tool for governments to mobilize women and advocate for their participation in the workforce. This study is going to investigate the parallels and disparities in how the United States and Canada utilize propaganda to achieve these goals. When dealing with the research focus and professional discourse, this dissertation fits within the broader discourse of gender studies, wartime history, and propaganda analysis. Previous scholarship has extensively, as you've seen, examined the role of propaganda in individual countries, but there have been noticeable gaps in comparative analysis. By directly comparing the strategies of the United States and Canada, this research will provide a more comprehensive understanding of North American wartime propaganda and its impact on gender roles. Historians like Maureen Honey, who authored Creating Rosie the Riveter, have explored how American propaganda emphasized patriotic duty and economic necessity. Similarly, Ruth Roach Pearson, They're Still Women After All, delves into Canada's efforts highlighting communal effort and national identity. This dissertation aims to bridge the gap between the national studies and offers a comparative perspective highlighting shared goals and distinction. The historiography of women's roles and propaganda strategies during World War II has evolved significantly from early military-focused narratives to a more exploration of gender, culture, and intersectionality. Each school of thought contributes to a deeper understanding of how the war reshaped gender norms and mobilized women in different societal and national contexts. As scholarship continues to develop, it increasingly incorporates a diverse perspective and methodology, offering a rich and more comparative view of this pivotal period in history. Thank you for coming to my discussion.